What's up, Bulldogs? All right. Today I have a very special guest for you guys, someone who I've been following for quite a while, actually. I remember I think I was first introduced to Jesse Lee Peterson when I saw one of my friends, Elliot Hulse, on his show, The Fallen State. And I really liked what he had to say. I really liked his no bullshit approach of just like, calling people out, just addressing what needs to be addressed and being very unapologetic about it. It's, I think you'll find, very similar style as to what you find here on this channel. So welcome Jesse to the channel.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, no, it's
we're gonna have to get you on the Fallen State. Are you ever in LA?
I am, yeah. I'm actually in San Diego, so it's not too far from me.
Oh, we're gonna have to get you on the Fallen State.
Okay, yeah. No, I'd be glad to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start off just talking a little bit about your background. I know you've got quite an interesting background. Maybe tell everyone kind of, what's your background and what are you up to right now?
Well, I was born in Alabama on a plantation. I was raised on that plantation. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws. And for those who don't know, Jim Crow laws was when the blacks in Alabama were restricted to live in certain areas. Blacks and whites at that time were not going to school together. Even though I was going to school, at the very last year of my high school, they didn't integrate the school. But I grew up under Jim Crow laws. The fortunate thing about me and my life is that I did grow up with parents, grandparents and parents. And black people at that time were not angry. They were not blaming the white people for any situations. They got married before having children out of wedlock. They worked hard. They taught us to work from day one. We learned to work and be responsible. Even though the Jim Crow laws were there, they didn't affect us in the way that blacks pretend that they're affected today. And so I learned to work. I moved from Alabama in 1968 to LA, and I started to listen to those liars like Jesse Jackson, the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, Louis Farrakhan, and others. And some of these black preachers who were not called by God but by their mama, they were telling us that, and I was 18 at the time, 19, they were telling us that it was racism, the white man trying to hold the black man down. And I believed that for a minute. And the moment I believed that lie, I became like them. I started thinking like them, feeling like them, and acting like them. And so I suffered for that. And I realized that if white people are holding us back, why is it that they're not holding the race hustlers back? The black preachers and all, they were living high on the hall, doing very well. So I realized I had been lied to.
Right.
And when I realized that, I was able to overcome it. And so I started Bond, my nonprofit, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And people can find us at rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com. But I started Bond because I realized that black people being lied to about racism, and that there's no such thing as racism, and that's never existed. It's a made up lie in order to control the people. Because we live by faith, right? So whatever we believe, believes in us, and it controls us. If you believe a lie, it's hard to believe the truth. If you believe the truth, it's hard to believe a lie because you're controlled by one or the other. So I started Bar John, long story short, rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. And we're showing men how to overcome anger by forgiving their parents first, because most men and women, adults and young, they hate their mothers, but they've been told that they hate their fathers when it's really the mother. And that's why you see men acting like women. They think and feel the emotion of a woman because you become like whatever you hate, whomever you're angry at, and that person control you, or those people control you. And so we show men how to forgive their mothers and return to their fathers so that they can return to their natural state of being. We tutor, we counsel, help find jobs. I started an academy, Entrepreneur Academy, where we're teaching men ages 15 and up how to start businesses, because these guys, once they overcome that anger, they start to see things, they overcome the fear, and they realize, wow, I can do this. So we show them how to start businesses. I started a credit union so we can loan them the money.
Oh,
because some of
wow.
them don't have credit. And so, and they pay it back, with a small interest so we can keep the credit union going. And that's been 29 years ago, John. And now we're working with men and women around the world. But the focus is still on the man, because if we don't bring the man back to his natural state of being, it's over for this country and for the world, because women don't know what they're doing. They are very emotional, and their decisions are based on what they think and how they feel. And it's the wrong decisions all the time. And now that men are becoming weak, because any man that has anger is a woman. So they're becoming more and more like women, which make them subject to women. And so the women are taking over, and all hell is coming out right now. Anything that's wrong is being pushed as right.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with a lot of what you said there, and it's very true. I'd like to kind of look at some of the statements, because I know that some of my audience, when they're listening to you right now, they're gonna be like, oh, no, they're jumping out of their seat, they're having objections. So probably the first thing that they would have objected to would be that there's no such thing as racism. So explain
Right.
a little bit more what you mean by. I think I understand what you mean by that, but explain a little bit more what you mean by that.
When I was growing up in Alabama, there was no such word that I'm aware of as racism. We were told by our parents and grandparents that there's only good or evil, right or wrong. Either you're of evil and you're being influenced by that, or you're of good, which is of God, and you're being influenced by that. And so there were good people on both sides of the fence, black and white, and there were bad people on both sides, because some people don't believe in God, some do. And so you have evil and good. The word racism was made up by the race hustlers, the traders, in order to deceive the people, because no one can ever prove that they are racist. It's just, they accuse you of that. And how do you prove that you're not? And if you know, everybody heard of a racist, but no one is admitting that they're racist, because it doesn't exist. You either love your fellow man or you hate them. And that's what we have happening right now. I call the children of the lie, the liberal media, the Democratic Party, the right-o Republicans, the never Trumpers, the black race hustlers. They keep using that word in order to manipulate white people, to put fear in them so that white people can't speak up, and they take white people's stuff away from them, their money, their businesses, and all kinds of stuff. And then they use it on the blacks, because they know that most black people hate white folks. And that when they hear that word racism, they go into an automatic trance.
Yeah.
You can get them to vote for you. You can get them to jump into the ocean when they're in that trance with that word. But if you overcome that word, you will see that it's a spiritual battle. It has nothing to do with male or female or what color you are or where you came from. It's the God that you serve. You either serve the God that created us all, or your dad is Satan. And these people who are using the word racism, their daddy is Satan. He's evil.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot more sense. I think, it's interesting, because in the world today, you don't really see very many people that are quote racist or are discriminating against someone based on their skin color.
That's right.
Not to say that it doesn't I mean, people obviously discriminated against people on their based on their skin color in the past, and still do, but you just don't like I would say that the amount that it's blown up to be this big thing, I in my whole life, I don't think I've ever encountered it really once. I mean, maybe someone's made a statement that someone would call racist, but to me, it's like, I don't care what someone says, I care what they do. And I've never seen a racist action in my life. Right.
And black people, if there was such a thing as racism, it's not. But black people discriminate against whites more than whites have ever discriminated against black people. And it's because the blacks hate the whites. It's not because of their color per se, but they hate white people because white people have been lied about, slavery, Jim Crow, and so those blacks who have fallen into that lie, they don't even know that they are free today. White people are so afraid of black people, they'll let them do anything. But the blacks are so angry and hateful, and they do not believe in God, that they can't see that It's about the spirit. It's about the character and not the color at all.
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of, like, whenever I've noticed when you on either of your shows, when you have a black person on, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, well, you don't like your skin color, or you're betraying your skin color," and they'll try to kind of like, as if you identify with being black. And when I look at that, I see you as, I say, okay, well, this is a guy that doesn't identify with any kind of race. He's just a person. He identifies with his character attributes. Explain that a little bit, because I'm sure there's some people watching, they're going to, that they're so identified with race that they feel like you have to belong to some group just because of your heritage, or what's your views on that?
When I moved to LA and I started to believe the race hustlers, and I believed into the lie that racism existed, I fell into a fallen state. So I was into the black thing at one time. My mind would tell me, which is not my own, but it would tell me that, oh, it's all about your color. The whites hate you because of your color. You're black and this. But that was dumb. Anyone who's into color is dumb. Satan is really their daddy. I'm not into blackness at all. I know I am black, but I'm into what is right.
Right.
I'm into loving my neighbor as myself. I'm into being right and doing the right thing. I love my country. And so I'm into God, family, country, and Constitution. I don't care about the color. I care about the character. If I run into a bad person who is unwilling to change, I'm done with that person. I run into a bad person, whether male or female, who's loving what's right and doing what's right, I'm with you. Now, I'll help the person who is into the color thing if they want to know how to overcome it. But it is not about color at all. Yeah. And so when I hear the blacks saying that you're trying to be white or you're not into the blackness, I just know that's a blind, dumb person and they can't help it. So I don't take it personal.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree 100%. Now,
the last thing you need to be about is your color. There's so many other issues you could be concerned about. Color is the last thing.
Exactly. Unless you believe that it's because, unless you have the false narrative, that the victim mindset of saying that everything that's gone wrong in your life is because of your color, because someone else has oppressed you, which, it's easy to take that hook, because it means that you don't have to take responsibility for your life. You can say it's someone else's fault, and you can see that how the Pied Piper leads everyone.
And that's what blacks are now. They're victims. I've never seen. When I was growing up, I never imagined that one day black people, men and women, would become victims, and they would live that out. They would play it out. They would allow other people to use them as victims in order to gain the power and wealth that they're trying to get. I never imagined, John, that I would see it in my whole life, because growing up, black people were not that way. Even though the Jim Crow laws were there and stuff, they were not victims. They did very well. My family owned land. I know other other friends who their families own land. They had businesses. They did not sit around and complain at all.
Yep. I think this is a good transition to talk about how this kind of bridges to masculinity, because I feel like not only is it, what you said with the black community feeling the victimhood, but men in general tend to have this victim mindset. I'm reminded of, I don't know if you saw that video clip, you probably had it on your show, where Arnold Schwarzenegger got kicked in the back in South Africa.
Oh, yeah.
And then his reaction was so great. He was like, obviously he knew he got drop kicked in the back, but his reaction was to say, "Oh, I didn't even notice the guy kicked." I mean, it had to hurt, but he's like, "I don't even know." And it's
I love that.
Such the opposite of the victim mindset. It's saying, like, I'm not going to acknowledge that you've even caused me any pain. I won't even allow you to make me a victim. If you rob from me, I would say no one stole anything from me, because I don't want to. Like, that's it's such a masculine mindset. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think about, just masculinity in general, that, like, the crisis that we're in, where men are weak, they're afraid to be men?
I think that any man who complain about somebody holding them down, or they can't make it because of their color, or because of lack of education or too much education, any man who has an excuse about dealing with life is a woman. He's not a real man. Any man with an anger is a woman, because it's a weakness, and men are not supposed to be weak. They are supposed to overcome. They overcome the challenges of life, because overcoming challenges causes you to become even more of a man, right?
Right.
And so I just think it's awful what's happening to men today. I do have to say that men, all men, but especially the white man, are the most hated species on this side of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Men are hated today. And not just outside the home, but in many cases, their mothers set them up to be destroyed too, destroyed by weakening them. Number one, turning them away from their fathers. The
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that can happen to a boy and a girl, but especially a boy, is to be turned away from his father, because when you're turned away from your father, you're turned away from your own identity. Then you start to get the identity of the mother. So you start to think and act and respond to life the way she does, like a victim. And so what we're telling men is that they got to forgive their mother, because there's an order to life, and that order is God in Christ, Christ over man, man over woman, and woman over children. The love come down from God through Christ, through the man, through the woman to the children. Women don't have love to give. Women are the receiver of love. So when they're not getting that love from their father when they're little girls, and from their husband when they get married, they don't have it. It's all emotional. That's why it's so destructive, because it's not real love. It's based on, it's really anger, and anger brings on a feeling that feels like love, but it's not the real deal. It's the imitation of the real deal. Men have love that you can't feel, you can't taste, you can't touch, but you live by it. It's like a light unto your feet. And so when the men love what's right, then that's what shines through the wife and the children, and everybody will grow up being, having peace in their lives. But when the men are turned away from their fathers when they're little boys and turn toward the mother, and a lot of women do it because they play victim. Oh, your dad beat me. Your dad was an alcoholic. Your father was a drug addict. And your father left me and he left us, right? But they're not telling the children that your father was not able to handle me. I was a controlling kind of a person and he left me. They make the kids think that he left them, and it's just not true. Fathers love their children. And
Right.
if the father is an alcoholic or a drug addict while married, it's only because he hates his wife. He can't deal with it. He married to his mama, because you become attracted to what you hate. And so you're subject to them. And so when men turn back and love their fathers by not being angry at them, get to know them, don't be angry, then that identity of the woman would change. God would take away the mindset of the woman and emotion, and he would come back to his natural state of being. His whole life would change. He would finally become a man of courage, a man who has peace. He doesn't hate anyone. He doesn't agree with what's wrong. He speaks up about it, deal with it, but he doesn't hate the person for it. He would get married if he wanted to be married, have a family, and his children would start the next generation, because they would love their father. And when they love their father, that generation of kids get better and better and better. So each generation would start to get better if they love their fathers. But if they hate their fathers, they're going to get weaker and weaker and worse and worse. It's not going to get better. You got to love the father in order to love what's right.
Yeah, no, I agree. That makes a lot of sense what you said there, and that's we're getting weaker as men in general, and
Yeah.
and I like the idea of, like, it's almost like you're saying, and I agree with you that men typically are the most hated, right? Today.
Right. They
And
are hated because they are sons of God, John. And the children of the lie hate the Son of God because they hate God. So they don't want any light in the world. They don't want it in the family. They don't want it in the schools. They don't want it in government. They don't want it in the public square because it represents God. And the people who represent darkness, they want to push their ideas because they love Satan. They love him. So they want to push lies and instead of truth. And the man, when he's in his normal state of being, he pushed the truth. They can see the truth in him. And that's why men are hated, because they represent God. They are sons of God. Even if they're weak, they're still sons of God, just a weak one.
Right. Okay. Now one thing that I think some people might say also is that you hate women. Now when I'm listening to you, I know that's not the case. I know what you're describing is, is attributes of women, but it's not, it may appear to a lot of people to be, and there are some negative attributes. There's negative attributes of men and women, but I don't see it as coming from a hatred of women. I see it as something that this is a distinct difference between a man and a woman. And these things, society has told us that being weak is a bad thing in general. Whereas for a man, it's a bad thing. For a woman,
it's a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah. I don't hate anyone. I don't hate my enemy. I love my enemy because I realize that my enemy cannot help but what they do, right? Because if they had love, they would not be destructive in the manner that they are. So I don't hate them. I speak up to them. I deal with them, but I don't hate them. I hate no one. But if I got to tell the truth, because if we don't tell the truth, then the world is gone. It's over.
Right.
Because it, and so when they use the word, you hate women or you racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever they say, it's just like the so-called race word, racist, right? They're using that word in order to stop you, to control you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't give into that because I know without a doubt that the battle is a spiritual battle. It's right versus wrong, good versus evil. Is this right or is this wrong? And so when they call me names, words don't affect me. They just roll off my back. I can care less what they call me. And I've been called every name in the book and then some. I've been called Uncle Tom, the N-word, you hate the gays or the homosexuals, you hate the lesbians, you hate women, you hate your mama, you hate your daddy, and I hate nobody. I really don't. But I love them enough to tell the truth and then let them say whatever they want. It's up to them to receive it. They can either accept the truth and overcome it or reject the truth, suffer and die. It's up to them. I don't care.
I agree. Good. It's good. I think so many people are afraid to speak the truth.
Yeah.
And even just to accept the consequences. I mean, everything that I say, I'm not always 100% correct in what I say, but I'll say it anyway.
Right on.
Because I'm going to say it. I'm not going to be afraid to say it. And I think that we need to have more open dialogue. I think what we're seeing a lot today is these very bad ideologies being pushed underground because they're being shamed. And so it's not coming out in the open where we could have a discussion where we could say, yeah, I'm not sure if that perspective is quite right. Instead, it's like, oh, you're bad, you're wrong. And so, but these people that have these ideologies, like we were talking about on your show, the incels and type, they still believe the same thing. They're just hiding it now.
Right. That's right. And no one has the right to tell you or me or them that they can or cannot say something. I don't have to agree with it, but you have the right to say it. Freedom of speech, right? You have the right to say it. I don't have the right to get mad at you and try to stop you from saying it. But I do have a right to say it. I don't agree.
Oh, but it's a hate crime. It's a hate crime. It's hate speech, right? That's the other label that they use to shut you up.
To shut you up.
Because how do you define hate? I don't understand. Like,
that's right.
To me, if you're violent against a person, you must hate them. Like that, like every crime.
And then with hate speech, so if I'm being hateful for speaking what I speak, are you being hateful for disagreeing with me? I can easily say, well, you're hateful too. You disagree. You know what I'm saying? But it's just all evil. We cannot give into that anymore, especially with men. Men can no longer afford to give in. I'm looking at the way white men are being under attack by, they're calling them white supremacists and all that kind of stuff. And now young white men are afraid to even go in certain neighborhoods or sometimes go out at night by themselves because they're afraid that they would be attacked simply because they're white and they're male. And that is happening a lot to them. And that's why I've been telling white males for years now. We've been around 29 years, the organization. And I've been telling them to speak up, speak up, speak up. You don't hate, speak up. Because when you don't speak up, you tend to hate yourself for not speaking up, and you hate others who attack you with words, right? But if you speak up, you feel better about yourself because it's not staying on the inside, it's coming out of you. And white men better start speaking up because they're not going to let up until white people say, no more, I'm not your problem, you're your own problem, I got my own life to live, I don't care, you're wrong about me. They got to start speaking up like other cultures are doing as well.
What do you think about the concept of white privilege? This is another one that I feel like is used to silence, because I can't say anything about a racial issue or about, you know, whatever, because I have white privilege, so I can't even see my privilege. I don't even know. So I'm unqualified to have an opinion.
It's so ridiculous, man, that it's hard for me to believe that there's one person on earth who will fall for this one. I mean, really. And I'm thinking that anyone who falls for this idea of white privilege, they have to be a dummy. You just have to be like kind of mentally retarded or something to fall. That somebody can come up with a word called white privilege, a word called white privilege, and now you can't speak about it because they made the word up. You can't say it's a made up word. It's simply not true at all. It's just another lie. In other words that the children of the lie made up, other words that the children of the lie made up in order to control you, John. I mean, even if I was in a fallen state, there would be some things I would know, you know what, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'm in a fallen state, but I know that doesn't make sense. You know, some things just doesn't make sense.
So it's amazing how many people believe it, though, because I think because there's so much reinforcement. I think social media has a lot to do with it, where people are seeing everyone's afraid to be the one who's the immoral one or the bad one. So they're all agreeing to these things. I mean, all these terms we have now: mansplaining, another made up term, right?
Yeah.
And another term to silence people, to basically say that they're microaggressions, right? You know, all of these things that are just, they don't even.
So crazy. I say on my show all the time, there's no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobiaism, Islamophobism, deadbeat dadism, anti-Semitism. No ism. It's either right or wrong, good or evil. That's all to it. And if people come back to the basic common sense, and they can tell if something is right or is it wrong and judge it based on that, they will be fine. We will have paradise on earth.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I agree with you on the isms and the ists, right? The isms and the ists, because it's just a way to classify someone and to completely ignore all their other attributes and to put them in a box and say, well, you belong to this class, so you must behave this way, and this is you. This is how I can summarize you.
This is yet another reason that men got to come back to their natural state of being, because men are logical, and they tend to bring logic into the world. And so because men are, because, you know, they're so weak now, they're afraid to speak up. I even see men riding in cars and things, automobiles, with women or with a woman, and the man is sitting in the woman's seat, and the woman is driving. She's in the man's seat. And I just look over at him and I'm like, wow, beta male. Because
it's true. It's interesting.
If a man is in a car with a woman, he should be driving. Even if it's her car, he can say, look, I'm driving. Or when you're walking on the side of the road, you're walking down the road, you're supposed to be on the outside, not on the inside. The woman is supposed to be protected because she's the weaker vessel, right? So she should be protected. But the men are acting like the women now. They're taking the role of the women with no shame. They're not even fighting for their manhood. They're totally allowing themselves to be turned into a woman. I just never seen anything in my life like this.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's funny. I mean, just the examples that you just used there. I know there's going to be so many people that are going to be so upset about this and think that it's so sexist and all these things. But it's in reality, this is the way that things should be. This is what a man should be.
That's the order.
So moved in this other direction to believe that this would be a wrong thing, that equality is, you know, that this, you know, being the same and equal are synonymous, that we've moved in that direction. So what do you think about then, you know, maybe let's talk a little bit about the male and female dynamics, because obviously, you know, there's roles, right? Men have certain roles and responsibilities. And I take it from your grasp of manhood that you put a man in a position of a lot of power, but at the same time, you put him in the ultimate responsibility of his family, of humanity, of the earth. So where then is the distinction between what is a man's role, responsibilities, you know, masculine attributes, what is feminine role, responsibilities, and the feminine attributes?
Very good question. first I want to say that when men are in their natural state of being, they don't think of it as power. That's another lie been made up by the women who hate men, right?
Right.
It's just natural. It's just, they don't think of it as power. They're just being a man. And a purpose of a man is to bring love into the family. As I said, first of all, the love comes from the man to the woman to the children from God, right? And then the man bring order to the family. When there are issues in the family, it's not the mother who solved the issues because she doesn't know how. It's the father who solved the issue with logic. When a man want to start a family, he get married, no sex before marriage, don't live together until marriage because sex is like a drug. Women are drug dealers, sex dealers, and men are sex addicts. So when you get to sex before marriage, you lose a sense of consciousness and you become subject to the woman. And so you get to know each other, date, get to know each other, and you'll see if this is the person that you want to be with both ways. The wife will see it, the woman will see it, and the man will see it. And if it works out, you get married. The woman have babies, because the only purpose for marriage is to have children. If you don't want to have children, there's no reason to get married. And so you get married, the father provide the love, the finance, he take care of the family. The mother is like the vice president to the father. So like when the father has to go off to work, the mother carry out his order. You watch over the kids until I come back. You take them to school, you make a meal, you do that kind of stuff. And so women who love their earthly father would love being a woman in the home. It's not a competition. It's just the order of life. And when that order is together, it works well like that. But when you switch that order, it would never work.
Not everyone is going to be religious. So for those guys, what should they be? What should they strive to be as a man? Or I guess another way to put this is what universally are they lacking? Like, what does it take to be a man?
Number one, and it's not about religion. It's really just about the order, what's right. And so, let's say you have atheists out there. And I run into a lot of guys who don't even believe there's a God, or they may be agnostic or another religion or something like that, or even a secular man, whatever, right? He's never going to be the man that he was before the trauma that came from his mother. So what he got to do, he got to forgive his mother for what she done to him, turning him away from his father, making him identify with her, and recreating him in her image. He got to forgive her for that. Be honest with her. Don't ask for forgiveness because we're never supposed to ask for forgiveness. We're supposed to forgive.
Right. Yeah.
Because people can't help themselves, right? So forgive the mother and then return to the father by forgiving him for not protecting them from the mother, protecting the boys and the girls from the mother, right? So the moment they realize that the parents could not help themselves, in that very moment, they start to change from a weak man to a strong man. They naturally change because we can't change ourselves. But when we realize we're wrong for having anger, we're wrong for judging anyone, in that very moment we forgive, we start to change. And you will naturally develop into a man because we can't make ourselves do anything. Of ourselves, we can do nothing. We can't make ourselves be a man, ourselves be a man. But if our father had been a real man and not a beta male while growing up, we would watch him and we would naturally become what the father is. But if our father was weak and didn't deal with the mother in the right way and life in the right way, we become that way as well. But once you forgive, that's the only way out to overcome the spirit or the personality of your mother and return to being a man.
Okay, that makes sense. So
you must forgive so you can come out of that darkness.
Right, dealing with it. It reminds me of a book by Robert Bly, Iron John. I don't know if you've read that book. So you'd like it. It's a good story. He tells about a story, a mythological story that really talks about exactly what you're saying in the idea that a man and the relationship with his mother and with his father. But yeah.
The beginning of it is to know thyself. Once you get to know yourself and you see that you're angry, that you're weak, you have fear, you have doubts, You look to the woman as though she is the man. The moment you see that, in that very moment, you start to understand what's really going on. And when you understand yourself, it will help you understand others, your parents and other people. And you will see that they're going through the same thing for the same reason. And then you start to overcome, and then you become an example for others as to how they can overcome. But you got to start with yourself first.
Now, one of the things that you talk about a lot, which I agree with, is the idea that anger is weakness. I think a lot of men feel like anger is power, is strength. But, you know, like I said, I see it as weakness. You see it as weakness. A lot of people don't understand that concept. They don't understand. They think, okay, this angry man, like that's, but why, you know, maybe you can explain that a little bit to those.
Anger is 100% weakness. And if you notice people who are angry, the only reason they think they have power is because they have to intimidate you to get what they want, or they have to sugarcoat everything. They have to be nice to you to get what they want. And that's because they're in anger. And when you have anger, you have fear, you have doubt, you worry, insecurity. You're always looking for love. You always blame others for your failures. You never have peace within yourself. That's a weakness. That's a falling away from what is right. And you're weak. It's a lie that anger is somehow another strength. There's no strength in anger, but there is strength in perfect love. Anyone who does not have anger, they have perfect love. And in that, there's strength. Because in love, not this fallen state love that you feel, but the love that you live by, that light unto your feet. In real love, there is no fear, there is no doubt, no worries, no insecurities. You don't compare yourself to others. You're not in competition with others, but yet you do your best at all that you do, right? And you can take it or leave it. Nothing is so important that it can make you angry. You can take it or leave it. And that's where your strength is. But when you're angry, stupid stuff is important to you. You try to force your way in. You even have the so-called macho guys who try to play tough, but it's really not tough. It's just they're angry, so they're putting on a false sense of what a man is. But within themselves, they're very weak. And so anger is, don't let anyone tell you that anger is good and that anger is powerful and that there's, look at the women, they're angry. They have no strength at all, none, zero. They're very weak. And that's why they have to get past laws to stop the man and get what they want. If they want the children from you, take your children, they pass laws. They want to kill your children in their womb, they pass laws. Every man is called a rapist, a molester, abusive, and they're all passing laws. If they're real strong women, they wouldn't need to pass laws. It would naturally be happening. But they can't stand alone. I've never seen one woman who can stand alone. They have to gather an army to stand with them, an army of other angry people. Let's say if you had a wife and your wife got angry at you because she couldn't make you do something, right? The first thing she's gonna do, call her mother, call her friends, call her cat, call her dog, call the paint on the house. She's gonna call somebody to build an army against you. Oh, he's no good. He's cheap. He doesn't care about my emotions. He doesn't love me. And then everybody start thinking what she think. Now she feel better about being wrong. Well, a man of love or a woman of real love won't have to do that. They won't build an army against you. They'll either agree or disagree, and it's no big deal.
And I noticed with the whole anger issue, I see a lot of times on the left, kind of, you know, is people yelling in speakers' faces like this, you know, they're and that's why, you know, when I look at that, I'm like, okay, you know, if one person is standing there logically making points, even if you disagree with them, even if they're totally wrong, I'm siding with that person versus the angry person. To me, is like, I know you can't have logic and anger in your mind at the same. I mean, our brains don't work that way. The medulla oblongata, when you're in that primal lizard brain, it's shutting off the cerebral cortex.
That's right.
process and make logical decisions.
You're absolutely right. I noticed with the so-called Me Too movement,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as one woman came out and said, "Oh, whomever molested me," right, or I was trying to get a job and they had sex with me and I got the job because I had sex. The moment they come out because they're now mad at the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't just be one woman. Now they got to start a whole Me Too movement, right? You got because they don't have the courage to stand on their own, so they have to find other lying women to stand with them because they hope to get money out of it and they hope to destroy the man because they hate him. But if they had love in their hearts and something went wrong, they can stand alone. God is with them, first of all, but they can stand alone. Hey, this guy did me wrong, and just deal with it. But they can't because they're cowards. And most of the time they're lying. And 99.999.99999% of the time they have anger. And Satan is their daddy. And they don't mind destroying their fellow man just to get what they want.
Right. And a lot of times, I think that whole movement, they made a decision, they traded something early on, and now they're trying to take back that trade and say that they didn't have any, taking the victim side. I'm curious also what you think about, I don't know if you saw Terry Crews' testimony in front of Congress on the Me Too movement, but what was
Is
your
this
reaction?
that black guy that be flipping his chest like a woman?
Yeah, yeah.
He's a beta male all the way.
Yeah.
Just
Even
like
though
his
he's
mama.
huge, right? Even though he's a huge guy, he's still, yeah.
He's still the beta male.
Yep.
I mean, what man gonna join forces with a woman or with women and say, "Oh, I'm molested too. I understand it." Beta male.
Yeah. Yep.
That was, it was even thinking about it right now make me sick.
Yeah.
I saw him recently on something, and I'm like, what a weak male. He's
Yep.
all girl.
Yeah. No.
Beta
Yeah, I
male.
agree. Yeah.
I know his wife must really hate him.
Well, see, and that's the other thing I think that a lot of guys don't realize, they don't understand, because so I think society is really telling, especially a lot of young men, to be nice and equality and feminist. And at the surface level, women want men to be feminists, but they're not actually attracted to those men. They're
No,
attracted to the same women that they've been attracted for thousands of years, right? Which is the man who doesn't give a fuck, that is going to do
that's right.
what he wants to do, that has his own purpose, right?
Women hate weak men. They'll use you,
Mm-hmm.
they'll take advantage of you, but they hate you. They would rather have a man that when they tempt the man to be angry or give him sex at the wrong, out of wedlock, they'd rather for you to say no. But since they're in a fallen state, they'll take it, but they really hate you for it. Women hate weak men because their soul needs a man who is a real man, a man of love, a man of courage, a man that leads and not follow, a man that knows what he want to do in life. That's what they yearn for in the soul. And even in that condition, they still would try to control you, but you would be able to resist it.
Right.
And then they'll love you even more so. And then in about 50 years, after you marry them, about 50 years, they'll come around and then you'll die.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think one of the things, that I'm glad you said is because I think a lot of guys today, they do learn some of the traits of being kind of an alpha male, of learning how to be that way to women that they don't know. But when they're in a relationship, they revert back to beta.
Yeah.
And or they blame women for being emotional, because women are emotional, but they don't know how to deal with the emotionality of women. They're not that strong rock that the wind's blowing in their face and they don't care. They can just stand there, and so they say, "Oh, she's crazy, she's a bitch," or whatever, and they use that as an excuse to.
One thing I can guarantee you, John.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, well, I can't guarantee you, but one thing for sure, when
Mm-hmm.
men overcome their mothers, because most of them are afraid to deal with their mothers, because she's so unreasonable, or she's so sometimes mothers seem like they're really nice. Even that is a way of controlling their children and their husbands and everything. But when men overcome their mothers by forgiving them and speak up to them, they would speak up to every woman on earth. They would not be afraid. They would not become little boys with their wives, and the wives become the mama. they will be able to do it. But it starts with the mother. They got to forgive their mothers in order to deal with all women in the right way. But the average man cannot. The average man would rather deal with Hitler than to deal with mama.
Yeah.
And they'll find all kind, oh, I can't do that to my mother. And what they're saying is, oh, I'm afraid to deal with my mother.
Right.
Oh, that's my mother. What they're saying, I'm afraid to deal with mama. So they got to cater to her in order to get along with her. They're going to have to be weak with her. But when they learn to speak up to their mothers, but don't be angry, forgive her,
Yep.
all women they'll treat the same. And the women would love that. They'll challenge it, but they would love it.
Yeah, that was a big turning point for me, was when I wasn't afraid to disappoint my mother, when I could just tell her, you know, unemotionally, you know, yeah, you're guilting me, you're putting a guilt trip on me, but I'm not going to be, guilt trip doesn't work on me. It doesn't,
Right.
I'm sorry that you're upset, but I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. And,
That's right.
you know, I'm not wrong for you know, for not feeling guilty. I don't, like, someone who makes me feel guilty is not someone who actually loves, like, that's not love.
That's right. They're controlling you.
Exactly.
They want to control you. And mothers love to control their children, boys and girls, men and women. If you're 90 years old and you're married and you decide to move from Ohio to West Hale, my wife and I are going to move to West Hale. She'll move to West Hale. All of a sudden, for some reason, you got to move to West Hale.
Yeah.
You got to move into your house. Anything to try to have control of the children, even the adult children, because women are very, very insecure. And they get a false sense of security by controlling somebody else.
Right.
And they're still not satisfied, but it's a false sense of control. I mean, a false sense of happiness, of peace.
Right. But I like what you're saying. I like you know, it's the man's responsibility to stand up to his mother at some point and to separate, to become his own person. And if he doesn't do that, he won't become a man. And
if he doesn't stand up to mama, because men hate all women because they hate their mothers. When he stand up to their mothers and be honest with her about her, don't apologize for what you did, because whatever you did growing up, it was her fault. She recreated you in her image. So you're the image of your mother, so you're doing what she does, right? But when you stand up and forgive her, then you would change. And then you can deal with the world. But men are afraid to stand up to their mothers because they don't know if she's going to cry and play victim. Will she yell and scream? Say, I brought you into this world? Will she manipulate? Because whomever you resent, whomever you're angry at, they control you. And so they're angry at their mothers. And as a result of that, the mothers have control over them, even as grown adult men. Yeah.
That's a good argument just for anger in general, is if someone can make you angry, they can control you.
Absolutely.
Right?
If they can make you feel good, and if they can make you angry, they control you. Exactly. 100%. And the only way out, they got to overcome mama.
Yeah. All right, Jesse. Well, thank you very much. Guys, you know, make sure that you go. I got two things you need to do right now. Okay. You need to go over to Jesse Lee Peterson channel. I'll put a link here. It'll be in the description. Go subscribe, and then go over to Fallen State and subscribe there to both of his channels. They're both really good. Excellent. I was just on the Jesse Lee Peterson show just last week. You know, you guys can check out that episode and watch me on there. But, you know, he's got some great content. And again, you know, you don't have to agree, guys, with everything that Jesse's saying. You don't agree with everything I'm saying, but you should take in the perspective, because, you know, this is how you learn. This is how you become a man, is that you hear things and then you make the decisions for yourself, and you decide what you don't listen to what necessarily anyone tells you to do. You do what you decide to do when you take in wise counsel. So that's what it means to be a man. And so hopefully you guys got some benefit from this. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Jesse, and I really appreciate your your delivery of just unapologetic. There's so many, you know, the one thing I just respect about you so much is that you are just unapologetic with what you say. Even, you know, it's going to ruffle some people's feathers, even, you know, but it doesn't matter, because you're speaking your truth regardless of what anyone thinks about it. And, you know, even people of differing opinion, if they would take on that amount of courage that you have, I feel like the world would be just a better place. We'd have, instead of secret hatreds, we'd have open dialogues, and we could actually advance, you know, as a society. So
absolutely. Well, John, thank you for having me on. I'm going to talk to the producers, because we got it. I think I want you in a debate with a liberal male. We got to get you on.
Yeah.
A beta male. We're gonna get
All
to
right.
beta male.